You can buy a Ferrari 488 because you love the way it looks, because you want a 3.9-liter twin-turbo V8 behind your head, or because apparently parking normally at the grocery store has become too boring. But owning one is very different from simply seeing one on Instagram. Under that sculpted body are components and systems engineered for a car capable of performance that would have seemed absurd for a road vehicle not that long ago. And those parts affect everything. How the 488 accelerates, how it stops, how it corners, how it needs to be maintained, and how quickly an innocent-looking service visit can remind you that this is still a Ferrari. Today on VH Car, we are counting down 7 components and systems that explain what Ferrari 488 ownership is really like. These are not 7 random accessories or fake Ferrari-exclusive parts invented to make the car sound exotic. They are real pieces of engineering that help make the 488 what it is. And by the time we reach number 1, you may realize that the most impressive thing about owning a 488 is not simply having 670 metric horsepower available. It is living with everything Ferrari built around that power. Before we start, tell us in the comments, if someone gave you a Ferrari 488 today, but you had to pay every maintenance bill yourself, would you keep it? Think carefully before answering. Free Ferrari. Not free Ferrari ownership. Number 7 is something owners literally depend on every time the road curves. The 488's electronic differential and vehicle control systems. Ferrari equipped the 488 GTB with eDiff3, F1 track, magneto-rheological suspension control, and side-slip control. On paper, that sounds like a collection of abbreviations designed by engineers who were charged by the word. In reality, these systems help manage an enormous amount of performance without turning every throttle input into an unexpected meeting with a roadside barrier. eDiff3 electronically controls torque distribution through the differential, while Ferrari's traction and stability systems work with the chassis to manage grip during acceleration and cornering. What makes this especially interesting is that the electronics are not there simply to prevent the driver from having fun. Ferrari designed them to help the driver use more of the available performance. The 488 can therefore feel surprisingly approachable at normal speeds, despite having supercar capability waiting behind your right foot. For an owner, this means the car can handle a calm drive through Los Angeles or Miami and still become extremely serious on a closed circuit. It also means that a 488 is not simply an engine attached to 4 wheels. Sensors, suspension hardware, differential control, braking systems, and software all communicate with one another. When everything works, the result feels almost magical. When a warning appears on the dashboard, suddenly you become very interested in diagnostic equipment. Number 6 is the braking system, because going fast is impressive, but stopping before you become local news is generally considered useful. The 488 GTB uses large carbon ceramic brakes, with Ferrari listing front discs at approximately 15.7 inches and rear discs at approximately 14.2 inches. Carbon ceramic braking systems are associated with high-performance cars because they can manage substantial heat and repeated hard braking while reducing unsprung mass compared with conventional iron systems. On a 488, they are part of the reason the car can deliver serious track-capable braking performance while remaining usable on the road. But ownership introduces another side to the story. Carbon ceramic hardware is not something you treat like the brakes on a 20-year-old commuter. Condition matters, correct inspection matters, and replacement components can become extremely expensive compared with conventional systems. That does not mean an owner is replacing carbon ceramic discs every Tuesday. Under normal road use, they can last a very long time, particularly when treated correctly. But if you are shopping for a used 488, the condition of expensive performance components matters more than whether the previous owner included a matching Ferrari jacket with the sale. A comprehensive pre-purchase inspection is not optional entertainment at this level. It is financial self-defense. Number 5 is arguably the heart of the entire car, Ferrari's 3.9-liter twin-turbocharged V8. The 488 GTB, marked a major change from the naturally aspirated 4.5-liter V8 used in the Ferrari 458 Italia. Instead of relying on high engine speed alone, Ferrari moved to turbocharging and produced 670 metric horsepower, transforming the way its mid-engine V8 road car delivered performance. The result was enormous acceleration combined with a broad wave of torque. Ferrari quoted a 0 to 100 km/h time of 3.0 seconds, 0 to 200 in 8.3 seconds, and a top speed above 200 miles per hour. Those figures still sound ridiculous today, which is impressive considering the 488 GTB debuted in 2015. The turbocharging system was carefully engineered to minimize the delayed response traditionally associated with turbo engines. And Ferrari used sophisticated engine management to shape torque delivery through the gears. That matters because simply sending maximum torque instantly to the rear tires would be a fantastic way to make 670 horsepower feel exciting for approximately 4 seconds. For owners, this engine creates one of the biggest reasons the 488 feels special. Start the car and the V8 sits only a short distance behind the cabin. Accelerate and the power arrives with a violence that ordinary performance cars simply cannot reproduce. But the engine also changes the ownership mindset. Proper oil, correct servicing, cooling system health, turbocharger condition, and documented maintenance become far more important when you are dealing with a highly stressed exotic powertrain. Fortunately, Ferrari introduced the 488 during an era in which its ownership support had become far more comprehensive than the horror stories people still repeat from older exotic cars. Ferrari's 7-year genuine maintenance program covers scheduled maintenance during the first 7 years under its program conditions, with servicing based on annual or mileage intervals. That does not make everything about Ferrari ownership inexpensive. It simply means the old joke that you need to sell a kidney every time the oil needs changing is slightly less accurate than it used to be. Number 4 is the 7-speed F1 dual-clutch transmission, and this component completely changes the personality of the 488. There is no traditional manual gearbox in the standard 488 GTB. Instead, the car uses a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission designed to deliver extremely fast gear changes while remaining manageable in traffic. One clutch handles one group of gears while the other prepares the next gear, allowing shifts to happen incredibly quickly. Pull the paddle, the transmission reacts, and the next gear arrives before your passenger has finished questioning your life choices. Around town, the transmission can operate automatically, which makes the 488 far easier to use than many older exotic cars. You can sit in traffic, navigate parking garages, and drive through ordinary American suburbs without performing an elaborate clutch ritual at every intersection. Switch into a more aggressive driving mode, however, and the transmission becomes a major part of the experience. Gear changes become sharper, engine response becomes more immediate, and the car begins to reveal how closely its road car technology is connected to Ferrari's obsession with performance. But this is also where the reality of ownership separates itself from the fantasy. A Ferrari 488 is not one expensive component. It is an entire network of expensive components designed to work together with extraordinary precision. The engine, transmission, differential, suspension, brakes, aerodynamics, and electronics are all part of the same experience. That is why buying the cheapest 488 you can find can be a dangerous strategy. The purchase price is only the entrance ticket. Condition, history, correct maintenance, and how the previous owner treated the car can matter far more than saving a few $1,000s up front. And we still have 3 components left. These are the parts that explain how Ferrari made the 488 stable at enormous speed, why its rear bodywork does something far more sophisticated than simply looking beautiful, and why even the tires underneath a supercar deserve more attention than most people give them. Because when you own a Ferrari 488, even the things that appear simple usually have an engineering story behind them. Number 3 is the aerodynamic bodywork, because the Ferrari 488 is not shaped the way it is simply so people turn around in parking lots. Ferrari engineered the car to manage airflow across, around, and underneath the body, using features such as the large side air intakes, front aerodynamic elements, rear diffuser, and carefully sculpted surfaces to improve stability at speed. One of the most distinctive pieces is the rear-blown spoiler concept integrated into the body rather than relying on a giant external wing. The idea is simple in theory and extremely complicated in execution. Use the shape of the body itself to create useful aerodynamic effects while keeping drag under control. That is part of why the 488 looks clean compared with some track-focused supercars covered in enormous wings and vents. Ferrari wanted performance without making the car look like it had accidentally driven through an aerospace laboratory. For an owner, that aerodynamic design creates another reality. Bodywork matters. A damaged panel on an ordinary car can already be expensive. On a Ferrari, the shape, fitment, materials, cooling openings, and aerodynamic surfaces can make repairs considerably more specialized. That is why accident history deserves serious attention when buying used. A 488 that looks perfect under showroom lighting may have a very different story hidden underneath. Paint thickness measurements, chassis inspection, panel alignment, and service records become far more important than simply asking whether the previous owner took care of it. Number 2 is the tire setup. It sounds simple until you remember that every one of those 670 metric horsepower eventually has to reach the pavement through 4 relatively small contact patches. Ferrari specified 20-inch wheels with 245 ICE 35 ZR20 tires at the front and 305 30 ZR20 tires at the rear on the 488 GTB. That massive rear footprint helps deal with the power of the twin-turbo V8, while the narrower front setup helps steering response and balance. And this is where ownership becomes wonderfully practical in the least practical car possible. Tires are not decoration. Correct specification, age, condition, temperature, alignment, and pressure all matter. A 488 on old or inappropriate tires is still a 488. Except now, it has the grip expectations of a supercar and the traction confidence of a shopping cart in the rain. High-performance tires also wear faster than ordinary touring tires, especially if the car sees enthusiastic driving. So when someone asks what it costs to own a Ferrari, the answer is not just fuel and oil changes. Consumables matter too. And number 1 is not the engine. It is the system that ties everything together. Ferrari's integrated electronic chassis control. The 488 combines the electronic differential, traction control, side slip control, ABS, suspension management, transmission logic, throttle response, and drive mode settings into one coordinated experience. That integration is what makes such a powerful rear-engine supercar feel usable by someone who is not a professional racing driver. The famous steering wheel manettino allows the driver to alter the character of the vehicle, changing how aggressively the systems intervene and how the car responds. That is probably the biggest surprise about owning a Ferrari 488. It is exotic, dramatic, expensive, and absurdly fast, but it is also far more usable than its numbers suggest. You can drive it through ordinary traffic, take it on a road trip, or enjoy it on a closed track without feeling like every journey requires a support crew. But ownership still demands discipline. Maintenance history matters. Tires matter. Brakes matter. Electronics matter. Accident history matters. And choosing the cheapest example simply because it has the right badge can turn a dream purchase into a very expensive lesson. So, what is the Ferrari 488 really like to own? It is less like owning one extraordinary engine and more like owning an entire ecosystem of high-performance engineering. Every system supports another system, and that is exactly why the car feels so special when everything is working properly. Now tell us in the comments, if you had the budget, would you choose the Ferrari 488, the 488 Italia, or something completely different? Subscribe to Car for more countdowns, ownership stories, engineering breakdowns, and the strange details that make legendary cars more interesting than the numbers on a specification sheet.